Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a decent, decent weekend so far. I heard about a very interesting thing. Also, a couple interesting stats involved here. But with the Florida Panthers advancing to the Stanley Cup Final for the second year in a row, on something interesting. The state of Florida has owned the Eastern Conference now the last 5 postseasons. 5. It was interesting because I hadn't really thought of that. And then I went and heard that and I thought, oh my God, that's true. And I thought I would go back and take a look at these. Now, another interesting thing. 4 out of these 5 runs have got New York involved in it. We go back to 2020, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They, of course, they win the Stanley Cup. That was one of the COVID years. One of the years of stupidity. And Tampa, they go and they avenge 2019. They go and because 2019 they tied the most win total in NHL history, and then they lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets in the first round. Well, 2020, when they finally got going again, they ended up meeting Columbus in that first round. They beat Columbus 4-1. Then they moved to the second round. They knock off the Boston Bruins 4-1. And then in the conference final, they play the New York Islanders. They beat them 4-2. And then in the Stanley Cup final, they win the Stanley Cup, beating Dallas 4-2. So they win the 2020 Stanley Cup. 2021. We come in now. This is the all division play. They did realignment and all that because nobody could cross the border. Nobody could cross from the U.S. to Canada or vice versa. Again, the full stupid year. And Tampa, of course, they win the Stanley Cup again. Oddly enough, in the first round, who do they beat in the first round? They beat Florida. They beat Florida 4-2. Then they beat the Carolina Hurricanes 4-1 in the second round. And then you couldn't call it the conference final that year. You had to call it the semifinal. That's where they beat the New York Islanders again, this time 4-3. Then, in the Stanley Cup final, they beat a fellow Eastern Conference team, but that particular year, they had to redo everything. So the Montreal Canadiens ended up winning the Clarence Campbell Trophy, which normally is a trophy they don't ever play for, but they did that year. And Tampa beat them 4-1. So Tampa ends up winning back-to-back Stanley Cups there. And yeah, they're looking great. 2022, they make their 3rd straight trip to the Stanley Cup Final. They defeat the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-3 in the first round. Then again, they beat a familiar foe in the second round. They beat the Florida Panthers. This time they beat the Panthers 4-0. Then, in the conference final, who do they beat? The other New York team, the New York Rangers. They knock them off in the conference final 4-2. And then in the Stanley Cup final, that's where they fall 4-2 to the Colorado Avalanche. So that was a run of 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals for the Tampa Bay Lightning and 2 championships. Fast forward the next year, 2023. Here's the Florida Panthers, a team that really nobody expected much out of. You know, they played the first round, and they played against a Boston team that had won 65 games. They jumped up 3-1 on the Panthers. Nobody gave the Panthers a shot to end up winning that series. I certainly didn't. They came all the way back. And they beat Boston 4-3 as a number 2 wild card. Shocking. Everybody was shocked at that. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. So a lot of people didn't really give them much chance going into that second round playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. Well, they made pretty quick work of the Toronto Maple Leafs. They beat Toronto 4-1, and it just was a dismantling. They just dismantled the Leafs. It was just crazy. And then they go to the conference final, and even though they swept Carolina 4-0, every one of those games were decided by 1 goal, and the first 2 were in overtime. The first game, I think, was 3 overtimes? So, that's how close that Carolina series was. But they were a beaten team. They were battered. They were hurt. So they went into that Stanley Cup final against Vegas, and Vegas just ran their show. They just ran them out of the building. Vegas took them out 4-1, en route to Vegas winning their first Stanley Cup. Well, now here we go again this year, 2024, and the Florida Panthers. They've looked so good. My goodness. They go into that first round, they play Tampa, and they ran Tampa out of the building. Kucherov, Stamkos, Hedman, Point, all those guys, Vasilevsky in net. Florida it was like a hot knife through butter. Florida just ran them out of the building. So they knock out Tampa 4-1. Then they play the Boston Bruins again. This time, they're a way better team than Boston. They knock off Boston 4-2. They get into the conference final against a New York Ranger team that won 55 games. They looked fantastic. President's Trophy winners. And yeah, Florida beats them 4-2. So now the Florida Panthers sit and wait for the Western Conference matchup, which of course is still over here, between the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton, of course, has a chance to do what Florida did and punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup Final on home ice. Will they do it? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But it's interesting because this is 5 years in a row that the state of Florida has owned the Eastern Conference. 3 years with the Tampa Bay Lightning, 3 years in a row from 2020 to 2022, and then 2023 and 24, the Florida Panthers. And look at this. New York, New York, New York, New York. Two of the New York Islanders and 2 of them the New York Rangers, all in the conference final, all in the third round. Both the Islanders and the Rangers have fallen victim to these teams from Florida. And it's crazy. It was crazy to think about. But I mean, what do you do? This Florida Panther team is insanely good right now. They are way healthier than they were last year. They have they will have basically an entire week off while they wait for an opponent, which could be determined as early as tonight or as late as this upcoming Tuesday, I think. So the Panthers are way healthier than they were last year when they made the final. And I mean, you go and you look at it, this is the second straight trip to the final for the Panthers. Can they pull the Cody Rhodes? Can they pull the Cody Rhodes? Can they finish the story? Some people would call it, can they finish the job? I'll go with the Cody Rhodes reference, and can they finish the story? And of course, finishing the story means winning the Stanley Cup. Can they do it? We'll have to wait and find out. But I just thought it was kind of interesting to look back and look at the fact that the Eastern Conference, for now 5 years in a row, has been owned by the state of Florida. Let me know, though, what you guys think. Can the Panthers do it? Can they finish the story this year? Or do you think Dallas and Edmonton could knock them off? Right now, I don't know. The Panthers are just riding. They're riding something right now that is just unbelievable. I mean, they are looking so good. But, I think it'll be interesting to see. Who do you think they play in the Stanley Cup Final? Let me know in your thoughts in the comment section. And let me know what you guys think of the fact that the state of Florida basically has been the center of the hockey world in the Eastern Conference for now 5 years running. Let me know what you guys think. Hit that thumbs up if you like the video. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. I would love it very much. Also, hit that subscribe button. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated also. I would love you for that too. And if you want to share this video with friends, with family, with whoever, basically, go ahead, share away, and let me know what you guys think. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the state of Florida owning the Eastern Conference now for 5 straight years. And who do you think the Panthers end up playing? Do they play the Oilers? Or do they play the Stars? Let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys later.